We've been talking about mindfulness for the past few weeks, and it's like just such a simple thing. Sometimes people think it's like some esoteric practice and some very exotic thing, and it's just really just paying attention. It's really paying attention to the thoughts that arise in the mind and paying attention to the situations that seem to be evident all around us. And in paying attention, then not trying to avoid. To the key, it seems, to this, that what's going to happen is that mindfulness is going to lead to happiness, a much greater level of happiness than we will experience without it. So the more mindful we are, the more happiness we will experience. And so the practice is this very this simple practice, but what's sometimes difficult. First, not to grasp, not to become obsessed and seek after pleasure in an obsessive compulsive kind of a way. And when a pleasant situation arises, to try not to hold on to, try not to just hold it, thinking, now I want to be in this particular spot, but to allow things just to happen as they do. And then the second thing is not to avoid pain, and avoid, not to get caught up in trying to suppress, push away, ignore, any kind of avoidance. That what we do is we deal with whatever it is in front of us right now. And it turns out that by actually dealing with the pain, whatever it may be, emotional or even physical, by being with it and putting our attention on it, it changes. Sometimes it actually fades away. Sometimes it changes. It always changes because in the material world, this is what's going on. In this world of the physical world, change is always, that's the one constant. Change is always happening. In this ultimate reality of spirit, there's never any change. But we're not aware of that right now. This is where perhaps some say where we're going. But in the world, change is always happening. So to not get caught up in kind of mindless pleasure seeking, and to not get caught up in trying to avoid pain, and then also to notice as we pay attention to what's going on in the mind, to notice fantasies, what the Buddhist psychologists call delusion. Uh, I've been really paying attention lately, and I found I was talking about this the other night, that I found that I have repeating thoughts that are almost like a script. That it's a fantasy kind of a thought, and it's a number, and it comes from the time when I didn't have any money, and I had this number in mind that if I had that number, that things would be at least comfortable, right? And so I would sometimes fall into a fantasy, kind of visualizing what I would let my thoughts go if that number was present. And I did it for so long. I actually got to the point where I didn't even realize that I was doing it, but there were certain times and certain cues that would occur that would cause me to think that number, followed by some other thought, but that number would always be present. And as I'm doing this practice and I'm examining my thoughts, really trying to pay attention to my thoughts as the day goes on, I found out I'm still doing it. I'm still using the same number, and I've already long passed that number. This is delusion, right? Now when the thought comes today, I do something different with it, but it would just cascade into, what would happen is the number would occur, and then a thought about that, and then I would just change the number to a bigger number. Because this is the deal. This is to be mindful. We have a friend in Chicago who is wealthy. He's worth quite a bit of money, but he has a business, and there's a cash flow element in the business, and so there's worry, there's concern about The thing is, as you get more and more affluent, generally speaking, there's just bigger problems that you have to worry about. I mean, so it's not like you're all of a sudden, but it's nice not to have to worry about how the car payment's going to get made and how the electricity. That's a nice place. But no matter what, no matter how much you've got there, you've always got new worries that keep running around in the mind. This mindfulness helps with this. But I remember a time when my friend called me and he wanted me to come to his house and baptize their son at the house, and there were a couple other people who were invited to come, and I know that the comments that other people had about him were everybody likes him, but they had comments about how man, he's loaded, he's well off, he's this and that, and this is great. But he told me on the phone call, he said, I have this Alan is coming to the house, and it turns out Alan is a billionaire, and my friend was very excited, and he said, I've never had a billionaire in my house. And I thought how interesting it is that your perspective changes, and no matter what, you're always when you are mindless, and our general condition, if we're not practicing, there's always someone who you aspire to, and maybe not in the healthiest of ways. There's nothing wrong with using people as an example of somewhere where you'd like to go. But to be caught up in this idea that somehow they are better or of a higher station or something like that, that is mindless. And it's something that actually denigrates ourselves. And there's always a situation which we're saying, oh, if only it were like that, then. But what mindfulness does is it brings us back into the present moment. And I was thinking yesterday, playing racquetball. There's a psychological process that occurs that when hurt comes, when pain comes, we feel it. We have pain. But after the pain comes, there are secondary reactions that occur. And this is one of the things about mindfulness, is that we can get to decide about the secondary reaction. So the pain comes, now we decide what to do. The Buddha called this shooting yourself twice. Right? So you get the pain, and then you shoot another arrow into yourself as a reaction to the pain. So I went to play racquetball, and I had a number of concerns in my mind that I hadn't dealt with. Instead of looking directly at them and doing whatever needed to be done or letting them go, I just kind of pushed them aside with a minimum of concern. I just kind of pushed them aside, but they were still there. They were still like right there in the background. So we begin to play the game, and my partner that I'm playing with, a good player, not a good doubles player, because he doesn't pay close enough attention to what else is going on the court. So I have a forehand. You always give way to your partner's forehand. You don't take a backhand shot when your partner has a forehand to the same ball, right? So I have a perfect setup for my forehand shot, and he swings his backhand right through my racket, breaks my racket. Now, this was a number of arrows were shot, okay? First was he ruined my shot, which was probably the primary thing in my mind. Second was the racket broke. I just sent my other racket to get restrung, so I don't, and it's the racket. I've got some other ones, but it's the one I really like. So all these things go on, and I swore very loudly, and turned around and walked off the court because the racket's broke. But I also walked off the court because I was mad. But all these things are cascading, right? Because I didn't mindfully take care of the issues at hand. They were waiting to pounce. All these other issues were waiting to pounce, and so I responded almost unconsciously with this anger. So he comes out and he says, "What? He says, settle down. It's only a game." And then I had a couple other things to say. I swore again. But then I realized quickly what was happening, and people were concerned. And I apologized to everyone. I apologized to him, apologized to everyone. The point is, what was going on was that I was mindless. I was unconscious. And so here's how this process works. When we're working with this, with mindfulness and trying to do the practice, we begin with what's called unconscious incompetence. Now, in mindfulness therapy, what they want to do is they want to get us skillful in dealing with life in a mindful way. They want us, it's all about having skills, using tools, mental tools, to establish skills that we just that we start using. But at first, we're unconscious, we are mindless, and we are incompetent. We don't have the skills. So what happened on the racquetball court would have been called unconscious incompetence, which means an automatic reaction without any space in between for consideration of what to do. I lost the moment of grace because I had already left mindfulness when I got on the court. So then the next thing that happens is after we start paying attention to this, we have conscious incompetence. And that's what happens when all of a sudden we are aware that we were just, well, let's say less than charitable, right? We were aware of it. So now we're conscious of our incompetence. And this is probably the hardest spot to be in because you have the regret and resentment and all that kind of stuff. But you still let it come out, right? And then after a little while, you get conscious competence, which is the ability to mentally kind of control what comes out. But it's still a conscious thing where it's a discipline, more or less. It's more of a discipline. But after practicing, and this can actually happen, all of this could happen in a day, and you could then end up in this place of unconscious competence. With a good sitting meditation, you go into the world in a state of unconscious competence. You are, as the lesson says, your holiness is blessing the world. When we sit and get ourselves in that state. Now, we can leave that state. But that's the whole idea of being mindful. As soon as we see ourselves leaving the state, we need to do whatever it is that puts us back in that state. But what's promised in mindfulness is that those times of unconscious competence, where it is just natural, that those times will grow and eventually become the state that we are in most of the time. Perhaps somewhere along the line, as we all hope, it's just going to be there all the time. Happiness, this lesson today from the Course ties in with this mindfulness in the idea is that happiness follows function. This is the little verse that I'm going to send out to everybody. Happiness follows function, a gift to all. So the lesson says, be aware of what your function is. Your function is to allow the light that is in you to go out into the world you see. And simply put, our function is forgiveness. Is to forgive whatever the pain is, whatever the negative is, whatever. Our function is to forgive, and our function is to extend light, and the light. This is all symbolic language. The light then reveals what's really there, not our delusion. So mindfulness, what mindfulness does is it tells us stay on purpose. Stay on purpose. Remember your function. And also know that that's where your happiness comes from. All these other things in your mind, you may think when somebody does something or says something unfortunate, we may think that our happiness is going to come by cutting them short. We may think that our happiness is going to come by getting some kind of revenge, by showing them up to somebody else, which was all a part of this thing that happened on the racquetball court. So, but this does not bring happiness. It just brings continued suffering. And we even know it. We even know it after we become the least bit conscious. We know that the behavior brings more unhappiness, but we still do it, and we do it with some justification of saying they deserve it. But really, when we say that, we're saying that we deserve it. And so it takes a while to become unconsciously competent in these areas. But if we think about that, the light, the forgiveness, the love, whatever, however we want to put it, that us mindfully extending that into the world gives us happiness, but is also a blessing to everyone else. Everyone benefits. So the lesson today, I think I sent out understanding. I think yes, understanding. The Dalai Lama said, compassion leads to understanding, which becomes love. And so compassion, this is a big, huge part of mindfulness, is this compassion is to be able to feel and even to an extent experience the suffering of someone else. But true compassion is not staying in the midst of the suffering. True compassion is seeing the suffering, and compassion is not pity. Compassion is seeing the suffering in someone else and recognizing that it is our suffering, that it is actually our shared suffering, and that it can be alleviated. Both those things have to, if our compassion, if we look at someone's suffering and we can relate to it and we can believe, okay, I feel like that sometimes, I could, but we feel it's hopeless, it's not compassion. Then it's something else. It's like some kind of weird piteous kind of thing, right? But it could be pity for all of us. We're in this dark hole of despair, and this is the way it's going to be. But so this compassion is this ability to relate to another person on the basis of we understand that we could do it. So compassion could be we see suffering. Compassion could also be we see an act which we see a violent act. Someone performs this violent act. And generally speaking, what we want to do is we want to say, oh my God, I can't believe that. I would never do something like that. But if we're compassionate, we understand that given the right circumstances, the right environment, the right motivation, we're all capable. And we don't want, very seldom is that comfortable for us to look at that. But that is where compassion goes. And see, then that opens up this door to understanding. And the understanding, first, there's this baseline of understanding that's the most important thing for me to keep coming back to, is that there is a principle. You could call it a principle. You could call it spirit. You call it God, if you like. You could call it the creative power. But that is the basis of everything. It underlines, to come to an understanding. To remind myself, I say, I understand that God stands under all. So if you don't like the word God, that's fine, but God is the foundational element. The creation is the foundational element, and and I am part of it, and it is part of me, and so is everyone else. And so this then allows some trust to happen, because in this mindfulness practice, we have to have a certain amount of trust. Otherwise, we're operating from the animal part of the brain, which is always trying to avoid danger. It's always trying to avoid danger, and it's always trying to find pleasure. So to have some kind of a trust, to open ourselves up to what I wrote was to let the mind, open the mind and heart to good. Because, and this is the thing about, today there was the Just for Today in the NA book was about goodwill. And so goodwill, we say God's will, goodwill is the best for everyone. Since we're part of this is one of the main points that mindfulness teaches, is to realize that we're part of a larger organism. That even though the body reacts in ways that says you're separate and in danger, and so protect yourself and get what you want, the fact of the matter is that we're part of something bigger. And so this so goodwill means that I want to align myself with this idea that I am for the larger organism, which is going to be good for me too. So before us is this infinite field of possibility. So God, or the creative element, is not testing us. We're not being punished or tested or judged by this larger organism. That's not what's going on. There's not like today, a gift and tomorrow a punishment. That's not what's happening. What's happening is cause and effect. Cause and effect is in operation. And so when we're paying attention, we see that this is what's happening. This event occurred, and then this followed from that. And this is just, you throw a pebble in a pond and just see what happens. Ripples go out, but also if you watch long enough, you see that smaller, but they come back. So this is cause and effect is always going up. There's this infinite field of possibility, which means that anything is possible given the right cause. So goodwill is for the best for everyone. And if we choose goodwill, we align ourselves mindfully with goodwill, then more likely than not, good results are going to occur. Although sometimes unforeseen things happen. But anything is possible. So if we choose the separate self-will, then what's going to occur just naturally from cause and effect is what we're going to get is more pain. We're going to cause more pain. We're going to get, temporarily, we may get what we wanted. But it's just cause and effect. It's always going to lead us to more pain. So to come to this, there's all these options available. We just want to align ourselves with what is in our present ability to decide what is best for everyone involved. There's nothing wrong with asking that inner guide what that is either. I mean, that always seems to be the way to get the truth, is to ask to be guided. There's so many options available that it can seem overwhelming. We really do get to decide what our lives will be like. The most important thing is to be open to that guidance. That all things work together. There's a saying in the Bible, it says, all things work together for those who love God. And this quote tells us that if we extend love to God, if you think about it the way we talk about it, and God is the all of everything, God is the larger organism that we are a part of, then all of God's creations also are included in that love that we are extending. All events and circumstances then coalesce into goodwill. So this thing is, some people, there's a couple translations where it got turned around where it said all things work together for good for those that God loves. That's not what it says. God loves everybody, right? So here's that was being pointed out, that the extension of love, which is what the meditation was about, the extension of our purpose is what extending that love to the whole of everything, then everything gets into alignment. Everything in our lives gets into alignment. And if there's a misstep, that's just another point of choice where we just choose it again. So we surrender ego. We allow hope to activate faith. We align our will with goodwill. We decide for right judgment. We look at things without the negative kind of judgment. We open our minds to all these possibilities. We open our hearts to the opportunities. And then here, this is the mindfulness of being present. To be present with creation. To think about, this is so helpful to me when I start to feel alienated, when I start to feel like they're against me, whoever they happen to be, to remember that love stands with me. That love stands with us. Again, I can't say God stands with us. We are a part of love. We are part of this larger love. Before we were, love is. Awareness of our place in the scheme of things is essential for our ongoing well-being. We are part of the web of life, but we are not the whole of life. Creation, Emily Cady, 120 years ago, she said, you are part of God, but don't get it confused. If you go down to the ocean with an eyedropper and you take an eyedropper full of water out of the ocean, no one would confuse the water that's in the eyedropper with the whole ocean. So this is a way to kind of keep ourselves in a little bit of humility. Creation is the whole of us, but we are part of it. That eternal life, love, and light are all ours. This is all well and good, as it should be. We have a place in universal mind, and we always will have. The whole of life, that which we call God, is our source. God is our pattern. God is our creator. We are creative. Just because of where we come from. We are creative. So being aware means both knowing and then taking our place. That our job is actually the same as God's job. Extend love. That's our job. So it may seem on a smaller scale, but every extension of love becomes a benefit to every other living thing in ways that in our present condition we can't know. So our job is to shine. This is our function. This is our happiness. Our job is to shine. Our job is to shine the light of creation, our holiness, on everyone that we meet. And then to really have fun with life, to do that with everything that we do. To give that, our place then becomes wonderful and honorable. So it's a spectacle. This physical world, this material world. It's I mean, we look at. I always have been inspired by the Hubble pictures, and but in mindfulness we begin to notice that it's spectacular as it is. It's all impermanent. It's all changing. I mean, go bring some flowers home. In just a few days, and they just, they were spectacular to begin with, and so this is changing. And if you just even, of course, you cut them, so of course they're dying after you cut them. But even if you don't, just watch the plants. I mean, everything has a cycle. Everything changes. So sometimes it is spectacular, sometimes less than that. But we realize that everything changes, and we see that life in the physical is temporary. This is like really important to be happy, is to realize that life in the physical is temporary, and you accept that. And then, and mindful though we may be about this, much is still unknown to us. So thoughts still are going to come. Yes, we're going to accept the fact that eventually the body dies, but these thoughts come and you say, all right, what exactly happens when the body dies? Where do we go? Do we go anywhere? What happens next? Do we come back? Do we ever really leave? The answer to these questions are really unknowable from our present perspective. I mean, plenty of people will tell you that they know. I would say if they're like really sure that they know, then really don't believe them. We have some ideas, we have some theories, we may have faith that certain things are going to happen. And actually in the Buddhist practice it's quite common to believe in multiple lives, in reincarnation. The Course in Miracles is really pretty clear too. It says, yes, you've done this many times, but that's not the point. The point is to stop. The point is to transcend, to move out. And of course, it's the same in Buddhist practice, to stop the cycle of reincarnation and to enter into that ultimate state. So, but in any event, we've all got opinions and ideas about these things, but we can't know for sure. So there are many wonders in the physical world for us to observe, and I think that it's a good thing for us to be in the moment experiencing them. The universe is awesome, but that doesn't mean that it has to be scary. These mysteries need not frighten us when we remember that no matter what the various answers are, But the main answer, if we go back to this idea that under all stands this principle of creation, under all stands this principle of one larger organism that we are a part of, under all stands God, then we get to that state of mind where we know that creation is in the midst of all, known and unknown. And so here's the question: is it the fate of every cup that it eventually be broken? The Buddhists think yes. So even if you have your favorite cup, figure that it's already broken and enjoy it while you have it. So lastly, open-mindedness. To be open to the words of those around us. To listen and observe openly, we can be inspired by the words and deeds of others, paying attention to what they're saying. Many people, everybody's heard this said, "Show me, don't tell me." Show me, don't tell me. But still, of course, is the idea that we would rather follow someone's good example than take their advice. But both can be helpful. Even and this is like so important, because sometimes, even the person who is not walking the talk, right? They may inspire us still with uplifting words. We can just treat the words like affirmations that have not yet come into manifestation yet. We can visualize the person acting in the same manner in which they speak. We can give people the benefit of their own positive words, treating them like good intentions. And at the same time, we can release them from their negative words and actions through forgiveness, to see them as they are, brothers and sisters, truly, truly very like us. And then to share ourselves. We also remind ourselves that one of the things that we've made an agreement to do if we're in this mindfulness practice is to not engage in unwise speech, untrue speech, unwise speech, unnecessary speech, to be quieter than we may normally be. But we can still share our ideas freely. As we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we become more trusting overall, and we share our feelings and our ideas openly. Our intimacy begins to grow. A stronger connection is established with our loved ones, and it's good practice to be free in sharing our feelings to an extent, and with some discrimination as to, many times it is not helpful just to open our mouths, start sharing everything that's in our mind with the first person that comes along. It could be overwhelming to them. It's not good for us to just be a leaky vessel. We need to consider who it is that we're sharing with, and are they capable? Not only are they capable of dealing with it, but are they willing and able to help? Both of those things. They may be able, they may not be willing. So, just some consideration before we just start spitting things out. Will we share these feelings openly, but also our ideas? When we get ideas, sometimes in mindlessness, still good ideas occur to us. But if we have a bad opinion of ourselves, we may not want to share it because we think our ideas are not worthy. These things need to be shared. At home, at school, in the workplace, we have a part to play in the ongoing development of good, the ongoing development of the larger organism. So, and we know already, great things begin with single ideas. To think that our ideas are not good enough, or that they will not be well received, keeps us from exercising our own creative powers, which is part of our job. So it's really up to us to give what is ours and to give in every situation. We want to be discreet. We want to not be overbearing, but we shouldn't hold back either. Most of the time, we know more than we give ourselves credit for. Try to act like we know everything, but within, We have intuition, which should not be denied. Let's give others the benefit of these insights and freely share our ideas. So, there's one other. I had a thing written down somewhere that I wanted to share. Okay, here it is. Okay, so it's all about growth. This mindfulness is all about growing in this world. It's in the same thing in our Course in Miracles practice as we're saying we are trying to grow our perception into our perception to the place where we can be at the foot of the bridge, which is actually the Holy Spirit, the foot of the bridge where God or creation can take the final step and gather us back. So so growth in the physical world through mindfulness is about progress. It's about moving forward. Creation is at work in us at a subconscious level, and then also through us at a conscious level. And it's so interesting when we have we can change our thinking about so many things. There may have been traumatic events that happened to us in our life, and they always return to us. Maybe at times of stress, maybe at times when we're alone, these images come to us, and then they set up a really an unpleasant state in us. But we have the ability to train ourselves so that when these thoughts come to us, we can go out and take a memory that was good from the past and bring it forward and try to set this up so it's the same memory every time. So I have this recurring bad memory that continues to come. When it comes, I'm going to go and I'm going to get this same memory every time to bring up and meet this bad memory and bring these good feelings from this good memory to meet and seep into this bad memory. And pretty soon it changes. Pretty soon it comes less and less. So this actually is something chemical that happens in the brain through our decision to just think about a different thing. And it changes how we feel. So we're growing, we're works in progress. Creation is at work at us at a subconscious level and through us at a conscious level. So we are trying to do good. We're trying to do our purpose. We're trying to work in the world. We're continuing to unfold and become that which we were designed to be. So it says here, our purpose is to give love, to give forgiveness. So we're working to be that in the world, to pay attention and we recognize that much of the unfolding can be done through conscious thought and action on our part, deciding what we're going to do, how we're going to act. And when we see that we live and move and have our being inside this infinite field of possibility, we're able to start making choices, taking actions that move us toward that which we truly desire. And that which we truly desire is not a vacation in a certain exotic spot. Yes, that's nice. I like vacations. I want to go on vacation. That's not what we truly desire. What we truly desire is to be at peace. What we truly desire is to have the alleviation of suffering. So that which we truly, so what an idea. To have total freedom. This is what's going on. In mindfulness, we have total freedom to be and to become that which we were meant to be. Every time we consciously extend love through creativity or through kindness, we evolve and we grow.